Hey everyone, it's Austin Solomon, the Solomon Group at Coldwell Banker. Welcome to this week's episode of the Real Wausau Real Estate Show. Today I'm joined by Kevin Ile, People's State Bank commercial lender.
That's right. Thanks for having me on, Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're talking about if you're thinking about starting a business, right? What do you need to prepare? What kind of things should you consider? Kevin, bringing in a commercial lender, that's obviously a big part of starting a business is the financing, right? Probably the most one of the most challenging things about it, right? Mm-hmm. Kevin, what kind of things should people be thinking about and considering when they're thinking about starting a business?
Yeah, so that's a really good question that doesn't really have a short answer. So first of all, I would recommend you can't just rely on your banker. You have to rely on a team. So you should have some sort of counsel involved, like an attorney. Mm-hmm. You should have a CPA. You know, like a consultant can really be useful. They can save you a pile of money and make you a pile of money.
Yep.
You know, it's just good to rely on other people that have experience as well. So I would say as you're formulating your business idea or buying another business, either of those two, I would really just do your checks and balances. Make sure that this is a feasible idea. I'm ready to kind of go all in on this thing. You know, I guess you can have a side business as well, which is a different story, but I'm making the assumption that this is going to be your gig now.
Yeah.
It's important to really do your research, understand your target market, going back to undergrad, doing your SWOT analysis, doing your business plan, your executive summary.
There we go.
There's a lot of information out there.
Yep.
A lot of it's good and a lot of it isn't so good. So I would I would really rely on people that have been there and done that.
Yep.
And with your team of people like your CPA, your attorney. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool.
But I guess if you want me to talk about how the financing works, probably.
Yeah. And we were talking a little bit about before we started about the SBA. Touch a little bit on that. Yes.
Yeah. So the SBA is the Small Business Administration. They provide a ton of opportunity for new businesses, for business buyouts. To kind of cut to the chase, the SBA offers two very attractive loan programs. One is the 504 loan program, and one is the 7A loan program. The 504 loan program is used to purchase fixed assets, so like real estate.
Okay.
And the 7A loan program is used to purchase working capital to basically start a business from the ground up.
Okay.
To cover soft costs, things like that. So they do. That's a very, very broad description of both.
Yep.
They do kind of intertwine with certain things that they offer. However, I would say on average, if you're starting a business, let's say like a restaurant, or you're starting a like a wellness business, or you want to start your own podcast studio.
How about a brewery?
A brewery. There you go. Hey, a brewery. A brewery could be either or. It could be 504 or 7A.
Okay.
They both could be good options. I guess to dig a little deeper into the differences between them both. So the 7A loan program, so I'll use a real world example today. Yeah. So I'm helping out a couple of gentlemen. They're buying out an insurance company, an insurance agency, and they are not buying any fixed assets. They're buying a book of business, and that is it.
Sure.
They're buying a revenue stream.
Yep.
So there's no real collateral when you're just looking at that purchase, right? So they're not buying a building. They're not buying office chairs even. They're just buying a book of business.
Intangible
assets. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. So the 7A loan program allows banks to essentially finance 90% of that purchase price with only 10% down.
Okay.
And that 10% down has to be in the form of cash. Unfortunately, you can't pledge your property as collateral, or you can't really do anything like that. But 10% down is, it's nominal compared to other options out there. So like a standard conventional option, which would be 20, 30, 40, depending on what it is.
Yep.
So that's awesome. The other really attractive thing about the SBA 7A loan program is they offer guarantees to banks, which makes banks love SBA 7A loans. So those guarantees can be anywhere between 75 and 90%. So in the event that something would happen, banks on average will be in a, I guess you could say a less risky position.
Yep.
Because our exposure is only, we'll call it 10% if it's a 90% guarantee, right?
Right.
So.
Yeah, and so you guys really like them, right? And that's the SBA. Obviously, their goal is probably to stimulate new business, right?
Correct.
The economy, et cetera. So they they're willing to help out in order to kind of keep the local economy strong.
That's right.
Is that a state or government?
The SBA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's federal. So
That's a
government.
federal.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So right now, like using another example, I have a couple of out of state borrowers, that are buying 10 buildings down in Milwaukee. They're buying a community-based residential facility, which is like an assisted living facility, and they're using the 504 loan program. So they're buying fixed assets.
Sure.
And these fixed assets they're gonna have long-term fixed rate financing.
Yep.
Which is very, very attractive. Right now, during the pandemic, there's a ton of stimulus additives from the SBA making this even more attractive. So, a bunch of fee waivers, even better rates because of the rate environment.
Sure.
And they're getting into this with only 15% down.
Wow.
Which is really attractive.
Kevin, you're saying, hey, Austin, you need to start playing at a higher level. That's what you're saying. No, I'm just playing with you. Yeah.
So,
no,
yeah,
that sounds good, though. That sounds good. How do these people, I'm just curious, this is a side topic, but how do these people, right, like, what do you see, like, how do they get to these spots where they're buying these 10 buildings, right? Like, because typically it might just be 1-2 people that are doing it, or is it a company, or?
Yeah, so it really depends. I mean, we see all sorts of, we see customers from as young as 18 to as old as, 85, 90 that have a passion for something.
Yep.
And that something could be transportation or manufacturing or assisted living or a restaurant or a hotel. And the list goes on and on, and in this instance, it was a gentleman, and it's actually 3 other partners, not just one other partner, but they are really big into real estate all across the country.
Yep.
And they have their hands in a lot of different baskets.
Yep.
And this was an opportunity that was really lucrative.
Mm-hmm.
And they snapped it up, and they didn't let it slip out of their fingers. And a lot of it is just being the product of being in a good spot.
Yeah.
At a good time. Right?
Sure.
So,
sure.
But a lot of people, they just, let's say, you've been a manager of an Applebee's for 10 years and you want to go start your own restaurant.
Yep.
Come talk to Kevin at Peoples. Come talk to someone at, another community bank and say, how can I start my own restaurant?
Right. That's awesome.
And the 7A loan program is probably going to be your best bet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I get inspired by listening to these types of stories because it's like, man, like I could, I always have ideas too, but a lot of times it's the implementation, So if people want to actually make something happen, they got to start talking to you. They got to start being intentional about planning the business, right? It takes a lot of work.
It takes a ton of work.
It takes a ton of work.
It takes a ton of work, yeah. And there's a ton of resources out there.
Yep.
The Small Business Development Center is a great resource. There are, like I said, consultants all over the place that will help. Bankers will help you. Attorneys and CPAs will help you. So like any advice that a commercial banker would offer you, that's going to be free. You just come in and talk, and we have a conversation.
That's awesome.
I can't speak for what other bankers. Maybe some banks would charge something, but that's not something most community banks do. So
right.
If you have an idea, you want to talk about, really anything on your mind that relates to starting a new business,
contact Kevin, and he'll get it off the ground. He'll hold you accountable to make that business go.
That's right, yeah. And if you can't contact me, I would definitely recommend another community bank.
Yeah.
Because community banks are going to be your best bet. They're going to be flexible. They're a community bank, and they work with local people.
Yep.
They don't see people as numbers. They see people as people.
Yep.
And their ideas. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Kevin. Well, thanks for tuning in again and coming down to the studio and recording this episode of The Real.
Hey, I'm just happy to be here. Awesome.